the fine! Now! Hands off the Boston School Bus Union! Hands off the Boston fine!
My name is Jim Charis. I'm with UTU 1741.
And why are you out here today?
We're out here to support the Boston School Bus Drivers Union that is working for Veolia, and Veolia is breaking their contract. As soon as they signed it, they started breaking it, breaking labor law. There's a number of unfair labor practices, and then they locked them out. And they're threatening to fire 5 of the leaders, the entire leadership essentially.
So this is a real threat to that local?
Absolutely, yeah. They're trying to break it. They're in league with the mayor of Boston, and it's part of the plan to start privatizing this stuff. So that's what's going on.
And Veolia has played a role here in the Bay Area in the BART strike. Why don't you talk about that?
Veolia, as consultant, was I guess the negotiator for the city. And
you mean Thomas P. Hoch?
Yeah, I believe. And you know, there's been some scandals in the papers about how much money has been being paid, and spending on fancy hotels and all this stuff. But that's their union busting consultant they hired from Veolia. Veolia, which I just learned apparently is running the San Francisco Para Transit. I guess they're managing it, they're the broker, and as well as the East Bay Para Transit. So we're here today to just send a message that we want them to lay off. And hopefully they're going to listen. I haven't seen anyone come outside yet, but you know.
And your local has also faced attack from First Student?
Yeah, we have an ongoing battle with First Student. Some of our issues are a little bit similar. I noticed some of the pay issues are different. They've done the same thing to us that they've done with Veolia, which is signing these extra exception logs, and we've been having some payroll issues and ongoing grievances with them. But Veolia hasn't we haven't had Veolia come into our contract yet, but we're assuming maybe MB or someone will bid.
All over the world, Veolia is hated. School Bus 5 needs to be reinstated.
Supported, yeah, very important. Yes.
Why is it important to you?
Because it's our job. You know, we have been having union for 40 years. You know, we're part of the community. School bus.
My name is Shane Hoff, and I'm with United Transportation Union 1741, the San Francisco School Bus Drivers. I'm a delegate to the Labor Council, San Francisco Labor Council. Veolia took over the contract of school bus driving in Boston, and from day one, they were supposed to, according to their contract with the city, they were supposed to honor the contract, the existing contract of the union. When they got the contract from the city, they knew this, and immediately they didn't want to sign it. Boston school bus drivers had to have a militant march to make them even sign the contract, and once they signed it, they continued to violate it over and over again. I mean, every tenant, every term, they were violating it blatantly and flagrantly. They were not paying people. They had paycheck shortages, lots and lots of money, and they weren't administering the benefits right. They were also playing this little game with the GPS, because under their contract, GPS is not under the Boston School Bus Union, United Steelworkers 8751. Their contract says that they can't use the GPS for discipline. We've had issues here with that, but we don't have that in our contract. Boston does. Well, they're flagrantly violating it and using the GPS to discipline. So there's been so many issues. So what happened was after so much unfair labor practices and so much violations of the contract, finally the drivers said, we want to meet with you. This can't continue. We're not driving our buses until you do meet with us. And they had a city councilman there, Charles Yancey, I guess the man's name is. He's now calling for Veolia to have their contract revoked. And so instead of meeting with them, with the threat of people not going to work unless they did, they locked them out. They called the police, sent the city councilman along with all the drivers out the gates, forcefully removed them, and padlocked all 4 yards. They locked them out. That's illegal. And that's why we think we're going to win this. Then they went after the leadership of the union. And they went after people that have been there 30, 40 years, formed that union, who built that union. They went after the vice president, elected officers, the vice president. They went after the chair of the grievance committee. They went after the past term president, who's been there. He's had 3 terms as president. And they went after a union steward. And they're suspended. All 5 of them are suspended. That's why we're here today, to demand reinstatement of them and to let Veolia know that they can't hide, all right? We're out here in San Francisco. We're supporting the Boston school bus drivers, and New York school bus drivers are supporting them as well, 100%. They've issued a solidarity statement that's really powerful that says we're 100% behind them. New York, the school bus drivers in New York are supporting them strongly.
Doing in the Bay Area, do they have some relationship with the BART struggle?
Yeah, they do. They actually recently sent in this guy from Veolia because they're so bad, Veolia. His name was Thomas Hoch, and they paid him $400,000 to try to defeat the BART union here, and he was intransible, wouldn't move, and he has a history of bringing negotiations to strike because he thinks that's a way to win it, evidently, and so the BART union is pretty upset with Veolia. It's the same people. So that's the connection with they also now bought out Super Shuttle, and they have Para Transit. They just got re-awarded the Para Transit contract for the East Bay and San Francisco. And we came here because we're all out of San Francisco and we got to go back to our routes in a little while. But
so what can people do who want to support the struggle?
We have take a flyer too. They want you to send in solidarity statements to the union and to call the mayor, put pressure, you know.
So you're saying the contract should be revoked?
Yeah, the contract should be revoked with Veolia, and that's what the city councilman Charles Yancey is asking for. Yeah, and we want these 5 leaders that are elected leaders, have been there 30 years, who built this union. We want them reinstated. They have tremendous support from their membership. They had a hearing scheduled, a discipline hearing scheduled for this 3 of the 5. And on Monday, they had 350 drivers out there occupying the offices, not leaving. They postponed the hearings.
So you're having a struggle with First Student?
They're not respecting they're not respecting our contract. Yeah,
Well, what about all the Veolia workers or First Student workers coming together? It seems like they're separate unions, like Veolia in San Francisco is represented by the Teamsters. Why aren't these unions all coming together?
Well, I'll tell you, we're together because right now we're out here, we're United Transportation Union, 1740. We don't care if they're the steel workers. ATU is supporting them 100%. The school bus drivers in San Francisco in San Francisco, New York, the school bus drivers in New York are supporting them strongly. You know, we don't care what union you're in. If we're fighting the companies, we're fighting for the workers.
My name is Geno Pepe. I'm retired member of ATU Local 1555, active member of the United Auto Workers National Riders Union.
So why are you out here today?
I'm here today to defend bus drivers, school bus drivers in Boston who are struggling against Veolia Corporation. Veolia Corporation is the same people, the same corporation that we fought in the recent BART contract struggle.
What was their role in that?
The role of Veolia in that corporation was Dracula. Dracula came back from the grave to try and bust our union and to break all unions in public transportation. ATU nationally is conducting it has a big fight against Veolia Corporation and Tom Hoch, their leading advocate. I like to see the guy laugh, but I guess Dracula doesn't have a good laugh.
Injury to one is an injury to all. United we stand, divided we fall. An injury to one is an injury to all.
Why are you here today?
I'm here to support the Boston.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Paul Stein, General Chairperson for the UTU Local 1741. I'm a school bus driver in San Francisco, and we're here to show support for our fellow drivers in Boston.
And this is a different company, Veolia. What have you heard about Veolia and their relationship with labor and unions?
Well, I probably heard what everybody else says, that they're a French company. They don't have a high regard for unions, and they're even worse than First Student and Lay Law were. And they're trying to disregard the whole contract that they bid on, and we're here to say that they need to abide by the contract.
And were they involved in the BART struggle, Veolia, Thomas P. Hoch?
I'm not aware of it. I can't say they haven't, but I don't know about that.
Do you think there's a trend of privatizing and attacking transportation workers and public transit workers in this country?
Well, they've been privatizing school bus drivers for many years, and it's a very competitive business, and they usually do that to try and avoid paying good wages and cut the benefits and pension benefits, and that's what's happening here. So far, the Steelworkers Union that represents the Boston drivers has held their own against the privatization that attempts to cut their benefits and wages. We have in San Francisco as well, but it's like water against a dam. As soon as there's a crack, it's going to come through, and there's always pressure.
And what's the effect on services to students when they privatize these?
Well, they're usually not as good as school districts. School districts, their motive is not profit; is to provide the best transportation, and they usually do a better job. But I can't say that in every situation. But the school bus drivers in Boston have been there for many years, and they have a lot of experience, just like the ones in San Francisco, because they've been able to get good wages and good benefits. And that's the most important thing.
Have you had similar struggles with First Student or similar problems with First Student?
Not exactly. When First Student bought Laid Law, they didn't have to bid on the contract, so they bought Laid Law and had to take over the contract that was in existence. And it's always been a struggle, no matter who the contractor is, and we've always had to stay strong and fight for our rights.
I'm the chair of the grievance committee. One of the officers that they're about to fire, what they're using against him is a tape that he went and gave solidarity to the New York City bus drivers, and he brought down drivers. Veolia is holding that tape as proof of that this man is a problem and needs to go. Isn't that incredible? Solidarity. They're using his solidarity with the other union bus drivers and to try to use it to terminate him.
Veolia! Reinstate the BART!
Veolia! Reinstate the BART! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Union busting has got to go!